What's going on, everybody? Breaking news. This is the Ryan Wright podcast, emergency stuff. Imagine if we had Internet 95 or, whatever it was back in the day.
AOL.
Yeah, we had before AOL Instant Messenger, and we got one update every 3 days. And the first one was Ryan Wright has got another year on his contract. Let's talk about it. Oh, man. That's how old I am. I remember. And ironically enough, my AOL Instant Messenger name is my email address that I've had since sixth grade. My brother
Nice.
sent me a gift card for my birthday recently, and he goes, "Hey, is this still your email?" I was like, "Dude, it's the sixth grade email. It's not going away. I'm keeping it for life." So
Adam, you're one of the thriftiest people I know. You always have good ways to save and pinch those
Oh, I'm
pennies.
cheap.
I imagine back in the day you had a stack of the free AOL discs.
Oh yeah,
free internet for 60 days or whatever
huge
it was.
stack, and I had so many email addresses that you wouldn't even know.
I knew it. I just knew.
yeah, that's crazy to think about. Welcome to episode 597. We're going to go over to the 2025 free agency, which has been absolutely nuts the last
Wild.
24 hours.
Oh,
NFL free agency has not started. It starts tomorrow.
There you go.
Yeah, he's right. Technically, it hasn't even started yet. We're just
legal tampering, which is it's like saying, "Hey, can I get a bottle of liquid water?" I don't understand
like
legal
imagine
tampering.
imagine if you called if you used that phrase in anything else in your life. Like if you were doing your taxes, if you called the IRS and you were like, "Hey, can I do some legal tampering on my taxes?" They'd be like, "No. No, that's not a thing that you can do."
They'll say, "Yes, you can. Actually, your FBI agent will be at your house in half an hour, so go ahead and get that ready."
Yeah,
Are
we're
there
all
still
forget.
people working at the IRS?
Right? Well, apparently they're going to get shipped down to the border, which is a whole nother thing. Which is
Hey, well, five things. No, let's not even go there. We've got actual news to do. We'll end the show with what five things you accomplished this week.
I got two of those emails at work, which was funny.
We'll go round table with that one.
But
no, we have a lot to talk about. Where do you guys want to start with free agency news? Quarterback?
If we can, let's start with the NFL first so we can talk about the Vikings and really get into the show. So I thought it was funny walking around Media Row at the Super Bowl. Yes, this is my flex that I got to be there. I just happened to get posted there, and it was I was like an adult child at Disney World. Oh my God, there's Rich Eisen's show. Oh my God, there's Chris Sims. There's this, there's that. So seeing Myles Garrett, seemingly 8 foot tall, gargantuan ass, walking around in sweats, being like, "I don't want to play for Cleveland anymore," I thought, man, what a genius thing to say. That franchise sucks, and they support Bill Cosby as their quarterback. I don't want to do that. That's a good move. Only to find out like a month later, he was just like, no, there's the number, and it starts with a 4. Myles Garrett staying was shocking. I wanted out for him. But that's good news for the Vikings because to round that point out and not talk about him for 10 minutes, I could easily see him going to Detroit, which would have been bad news for our favorite team. But
Isn't it weird how much amount of money can change someone's mind?
Oh, yeah. There's always a number. There's always.
I want to win, but for that amount of money, I am perfectly complacent.
Oh, that is winning.
Here. Yeah. Well, good point, Adam. Yeah, that's winning at life.
I don't even remember the actual number per year. I know it starts with a 4. He's the highest paid defensive
None
player.
of those numbers are real.
Yeah, they've locked him in. Technically, the length of the contract, if he plays it and honors it as is, it's still like 2030. He'll be a Brown for probably essentially his career, but he makes a lot of money as a non-quarterback. If I'm TJ Watt or somebody in that echelon of player, Micah Parsons might be in that conversation. They got to be sitting back like, "Thank you, Cleveland, for making my life potentially wonderful."
And these edge rushers are getting paid, and Minnesota got smart and got ahead of that and brought 2 guys in last offseason at now what looks like a bargain.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, that's what I wanted to start. Myles Garrett kind of shook it up and started everything. The pieces started falling yesterday and the day before. But we can go to what Kyle was talking about because it's going to eventually talk about our quarterback. Sam Darnold, we salute you, buddy. What a fun season 2024 was. He is now a Seattle Seahawk, a 3-year deal, $100.5 million, 30-some per year average. I know they can probably get out of it after at least a year, but he's getting $50 million guaranteed, and he's getting a chance to elevate his career, kind of like Baker Mayfield did post Cleveland, Carolina, to say, hey, I can work. Can you build around me? Now, this ties together, and I'll let you guys jump in on this at just a second, but they got rid of DK Metcalf and Geno Smith in Seattle. So the team is a little bit worse now. I wouldn't like that they got rid of DK, but he wasn't really featured well there. But Sam gets a fresh start. We salute you as Minnesota fans. That was a fun year, and I wish him all the success in the world, except when he plays the Vikings.
I don't think getting rid of Metcalf is going to be that big of a problem. JSN, I think, really took over that number one spot as soon as he arrived.
That's a good point.
And when the compensation they were able to get from him, like a second rounder?
Yeah, the Steelers got DK Metcalf for a second, which was pretty good value. And when I say what I said, Adam, you have a great point. JSN took over there, but to have the potential of that guy, I mean, he's massive. He looks like a defensive end or a linebacker playing receiver. You see the potential that could be, but I don't think Seattle used him properly.
And Metcalf wanted a pay increase, and Geno Smith wanted a pay increase, and they were just like, nope.
Mm-hmm. And I props to the Vikings, I think, for sticking with their plan. This was their plan all along after drafting J.J. McCarthy, was that you drafted him, you believe in him, you think he's the future of your franchise. You could have got sidetracked with Sam Darnold. And that
would have been really easy to do after a 14-win season.
Real easy to do, Adam. Real easy to do, to say, no, we have to pivot and do this. Rick Spielman would have pivoted.
Run it back.
And done that move and run that back. And, I mean, we don't know. None of us know what the future holds. But I will commend the Vikings for sticking with their plan. And because, you look, and I don't want to talk about Kirk Cousins. He's no longer a Minnesota Viking. But you can also look at what they were able to do last offseason and this offseason, and just the caliber of players that they can bring in and the money that they have to spend. And part of that is because you don't have this big guaranteed contract on the books from your quarterback. So
to be fair, Kirk Cousins is not officially not a Viking this season yet.
Yeah, still got that dead cat. Still got that dead cat money out there.
That's so funny the way you worded that. It's amazing. Can I jump in? I just want to say, now that we have it, now that it's official, it'll be officially inked tomorrow, but the news is out there. I had a note from February 15th about Sam Darnold, and I labeled it as the curious case of Sam Darnold. Adam, if I was going to write for the Viking Age, this would be sort of where I would go with this. And I'll make it quick. But after a little review and critical thinking to bring Sam back, team-friendly deal, obviously the Vikings were in talks. I think they probably went to a certain number in the 20s or maybe the low 30s, and he was.
Yeah, the report was that they did shoot him an offer that was kind of low.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I don't hate them for trying. He is only 27. If it's money-wise, and this is obviously a month ago, but if it's money-wise, makes sense financially, build the interior O-line, which we'll get to. Build it regardless of who is under center. The interior line is the weakest point of the team that needs addressing. Like right now, hit the emergency button. If you're going to look at the last 2 games of the season, that's the glaring need, right? I refuse to bash Darnold for 3 bad games. Now, they had 4 losses. The first game when in Minnesota, where they played Detroit, he played well, and the Vikings almost won. It was very close. But that game in L.A., at Detroit, and in L.A. again, he was pretty bad. But I'm not going to bash him for 3 bad games out of 17. The highlights were pretty good, and you see the success he had. And I think it's a testament to Kevin O'Connell. But he's a sneaky good athlete, man. And I'll say last year, dare I say, top 10 thrower of the football, as long as you keep him upright.
His deep throwing looked amazing and statistically was fantastic last year.
I said the very last sentence, they'll need to find a sweet spot for Sam financially, which obviously you just said and has been reported out there. Yeah, probably a little low from his liking, but I think that there's going to be a shift from all these major deals of like Tua and Trevor and all that and the Daks of the world. Because
Dak is the why did you pay him so much money? Like that's
it's on brand for the Cowboys, but I don't agree with it at all. And I think they will eventually, if they had to take truth serum 10 years from now, they'd be like, yeah, that was a mistake.
But that's also the reason why we've seen the legal tampering window open and Dallas not be able to do anything.
Right.
They keep resetting the market, and them in Cincinnati, man, I just don't understand why you wait till the last minute. If they had paid Jamar Chase immediately as soon as they could when the season was over and negotiated, he would have been about $5 million cheaper than what he's about to be. And the stupid thing Cincinnati did was say, we are going to make him the highest paid non-quarterback. Well, that numbers went up, and you haven't done the due diligence yet. And it's really stupid of them, especially getting into like the nerdy part of football. And I only know the base level of this, but they don't have a lot of assets. Cincy is a relatively poor NFL team. You got to have the cash on hand to give these guys.
Yeah, see, this is like me when I was going grocery shopping last week. I'm not paying $6 for a dozen eggs. No way. And now a week later, they're $8.
Yeah, you should have just bought them when they were $6. I guess
Right.
my final thoughts on Darnold is that, man, it was a lot of fun the season that we had with him in Minnesota. Like I think he was a tough, gritty player when he came in. I am gonna say it. I think he choked in the 2 biggest games of his career for the Vikings, and I do think that for me factors into the decision to not re-sign him. If they shot him an offer, you lowball him a little bit because he choked. And like I'm not giving a player a lot of money that I don't 100% buy into.
But that's
So,
also saying that you don't believe he can evolve and overcome those things.
I'm not finding out. I'm not paying him to find out, dude.
See, Adam or Kyle, this is the thing with Kirk Cousins that we always had to talk about is like, well, did we do enough justice by him? I don't think that Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer did enough justice by him, but I also can say in that same breath, defending him, I can also shit on him a little bit to say, you were overpaid. And I know I get it. Availability is the best ability. He was a little above average, not great, but he wasn't terrible by any means. You can have both of those. I think Sam Darnold is a perfect fit for this team. And I don't think the interior offensive line is now. It's kind of like Justin Fields leaving Chicago. Like, I would be pissed if I was him looking at all the upgrades they've done in the last calendar year
Yeah.
to now. And same with Sam. Like, oh, you went out.
Major props to Justin Fields, though, for getting paid.
Hey, good for him.
$20 million a year, right?
$20 million a year, 2 years in New York. It's just going to be the same old song and dance for
what did he
New
do
York.
last season to earn that?
The Jets, dude.
He kept
You
the
don't have
Steelers
to do
afloat.
anything.
He kept the Steelers afloat until
He was a
Russell Wilson.
situational quarterback last season, right?
Oh, yeah. You guys know I'm a Justin Fields hater. I'm glad that the Vikings didn't get him in the draft.
But he's still a young player that a lot of coaches and talent scouts are going to say, hey, he's got a lot of potential. If we get him in our building, it's funny because it's the Jets. But if we get him in our building, we believe we can fix him, even though that's not the case at all in New York. But more power to them for trying, and more power to him for getting.
But if he can go to a
contract.
team that's drafting another quarterback and they can figure out a way to work that together, it might not be so bad.
A lot of excitement in the chat here for this free agency, and I agree with all the comments that you guys have been saying. This is fun, and we talked about this a lot last year about how the Vikings have a lot of money to spend, and man, Adam, it's crazy. We're excited that they spent money on the offensive line. I talked about this last week, but you remember 10 years ago when we started this podcast when people were like adamant, no, you don't spend money on offensive linemen.
Right.
And here we are today. We signed a center, we signed a guard, and the guard got a lot of money on that contract.
Real quick, before we talk about those, I just want to give a shout out also to Cameron Bynum. He is an Indianapolis Colt.
Thank you.
Yep. Salute to him. Great player for the team. I do like the fact that they stuck with Byron Murphy instead, but I don't have anything negative to say about him. He's a great character guy and a good player.
Would have loved to see him back in Minnesota, but sadly that didn't happen.
Right.
I do think he went to Indy, right?
Yeah, he's an Indianapolis Colt now, which is totally fine.
What was the contract on that one?
Because I felt looking here,
to me it felt like
is $60 million, 15 a year average, 30 guaranteed, and I don't know how many 4 years.
So 4 years, 60 then.
Yeah,
that's great for him. Congratulations, man.
Yeah, great for him. I'll be honest. I think Indy overpaid. I think that Brian Flores really helped him in that scheme, helped maximize his talent. Like, I don't quite know if you replicate that 100% with the Colts. Just my shit opinion on that one. Shit on a guy on his way out the door.
we had one more too, and it kind of followed the same path, kind of the same kind of player too. I think DJ Wanham is better than Patrick Jones, but I think they're in the same neighborhood. Patrick Jones left for Carolina, much like DJ Wanham did a year ago or 2 years ago. 2 years, $20 million, no guarantees, but if he rides that contract out and stays there, he'll be getting a handsome payday.
Patrick Jones had a career year as a rotational player last year.
Yeah.
He could go somewhere and get an opportunity to start and see what he can do, or he could be a rotational player again and just contribute that way. I mean, teams are going to love him no matter who ended up with him.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Patrick Jones. I was a little bummed to see him go. I think that he worked really great. Like you said, just a solid rotational guy who probably does deserve that opportunity to go out there and prove himself with a larger role on another team. Thomas says we took 40% of the Colts offensive line, so it's a fair trade. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
But the Colts quarterback situation too is not ideal, and now that they're losing some of their offensive line talent, who knows what's going to happen there.
Yeah,
they're going to be a team to keep an eye on and might not be in a good way.
Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, that's another bit of Vikings news out there for you. So essentially the Vikings bought a comp pick with the Daniel Jones signing last year. I was initially, because I heard that at work, I've told you guys I have a coworker who's a Vikings fan, and he flagged me down. He's like, "Did you hear?" I'm like, "No, what?" And he's like, "Oh, Daniel Jones went to the Colts." And I was a little pissed off because I was like, you're supposed to be our backup quarterback. Like, I really expected him to be our backup quarterback this year. I thought that him and J.J. McCarthy would have been a good combination. So I was a little pissed that he left, but then I remembered, oh yeah, it's Daniel Jones. I really don't fucking care.
Darnold gone, Daniel Jones gone, Nick Mullins gone. Brett Rippon is still out there as a free agent. He's going to be hitting free agency tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's J.J. McCarthy right now only. J.J. McCarthy.
All of a sudden, the Vikings are in the market for, like, what are we doing at backup quarterback?
Yeah, they got to fill out that roster. They're going to try, hopefully get some veteran in to compete and maybe have, like, some sort of high ceiling backup role.
I was
maybe
looking...
draft a guy mid to late round or some high potential rookie to be behind them. I don't know.
I got to look up the guy I want and see if he's going to be free after tomorrow.
I was looking at the list.
Are you looking up Jameis?
I am looking up Jameis right now. I want Jameis Winston to come back.
He's still out there, and David wants him in chat too.
Oh, I need it.
I have a list. I mean, there are some guys out there who kind of fit the mold. I mean, you got Trey Lance. I'm not signing him. I'm looking more for like Jacoby Brissett. He's available. Drew Lock, Jameis Winston, Carson Wentz. I mean, these guys are not. You're not lighting the league on fire with them, but like they're veteran players who have been around for a little bit, who can come in and help McCarthy learn the playbook, which I don't think by all accounts, he's a smart kid. I don't think he needs help with that. But
all right, now while we're talking quarterback, though, I do want to ask you guys, what do you think of those reports about Kirk Cousins meeting with Falcons ownership and possibly talking his way back into Atlanta to where he might not become a free agent?
I don't care what Kirk does.
Because if he doesn't, who knows? Maybe he'll come back to Minnesota.
I don't want, dude.
Absolutely not. I don't want Kirk Cousins or Aaron Rodgers near this building. I don't want either one of them.
Thank you, Smith. As dire, and it's not the sky is not falling, but with only having J.J. McCarthy as our quarterback right now, if Kirk Cousins came back and was like, I will take a huge discount to be his backup, no, I don't want you, dude. I don't want you in the building.
No,
it's
thank
like
you.
Aaron Rodgers is one level of distraction, and Kirk Cousins is not a distraction, but I don't want him in the building. I don't want your tendencies rubbing off on J.J. McCarthy. Like, I don't want it, dude.
I'm looking up quarterbacks that are available. So these are going to be very bad. Jacoby Brissett signed with the Cardinals today. Oh, perfect. That's our guy. Is he undrafted? Go get Taylor Heineke right fucking now. Go get him right fucking now.
Dude,
I'm sorry to swear like that, but that's a perfect. That's what you need. That is a true veteran. He'll be 32 this year. Go get him right now. And here, I'll say this because he's going to be an undrafted free agent, and I kind of like it because I saw it today on the Viking Age. If he's gone, go get Mac Jones.
Mac Jones is out there. Case Keenum, you could bring Case Keenum back.
Oh, wouldn't that be fun? That would be. Oh God, you hear that? JJ McCarthy throws an interception. Like, put the Miracle Man in. Let's do it.
Teddy Bridgewater, technically, I don't know if.
Hey, Stephon Diggs is still out there too, as far as I know.
Yeah, Diggs is available.
Cooper.
I mean, I'm looking more at a guy like Cooper Rush is available. He's been in the league for 8 years. Okay, so he's got a little bit of that veteran.
I can see that.
You could stick a Cooper Rush in there if necessary. He could win you a game or two underneath Kevin O'Connell. It's not
so
a
these
distraction.
are the names I'm looking at, and I'll just tell you because like going down the list, I try to stay away outside of Heineke from guys that are a little older, but that's fine. Joe Flacco's the oldest. He's 40. He's 40 years old, so that's no. Case Keenum at 37. I'd be okay
with Flacco sitting behind McCarthy and teaching him and everything. I'd be okay with that.
Absolutely.
Can we bring Flacco in as like the third quarterback? Like you're not really you're not our two, but we're keeping you as a veteran. Like I'm maybe okay with that.
So you mentioned him earlier, Kyle. Carson Wentz, Marcus Mariota. I like him too. Cooper Rush, Jameis Winston, Mason Rudolph played decent spots for the Steelers. Then you start getting to the guys in the Sam Darnold age range where they might be looking for a career resurgence, but they also might just accept that they are what they are. Tyler Huntley, Drew Lock.
But if you can bring in one of those guys on a cheap deal and like work with them and make them a more interesting asset, you might be able to swap that for a draft pick down the road. So who knows?
Right.
Mac Jones, Tyler Huntley, Drew Lock. There's some decent names. I would guess they would try to get one of those guys.
Because let's be honest, Kevin O'Connell, he can work with quarterbacks pretty well.
Thomas says on the vet minimum, you wouldn't. Absolutely not. No. We tried that, man, and I don't care that he'd be a backup or mentor. I don't see Kirk Cousins ever being the guy to be like, sure, I'll be a backup and I'll mentor. The day that the teams tell him we don't want you anymore, he's like, I got $250 million. See y'all later. I'm out.
So I'm looking at the top of my list, Adam, and I don't know if he's still available from when I screenshotted this or not, but they got Trey Lance sitting out there, and we know that he was a high draft pick when he came out. Smith is immediately shaking his head. Is he a guy that you potentially kick the tires on because you have Kevin O'Connell and you're like, hey.
Well, here's the thing. I don't like him as the backup or the mentor in any way.
No.
But if you were to get a veteran backup mentor and have him as a quarterback 3, maybe we're talking.
Yeah,
but
that
2?
was more what
no.
That's more what I'm thinking. I'm like you. I don't necessarily want him as like my backup quarterback, but hey, kick the tires, man.
Hey, good things come in threes, right? No Aaron Rodgers, no Kirk Cousins, and no Diet Kellen Mond on the team either. I'm good.
Diet Kellen. You could potentially bring back
Mond though on what was it, the USFL he got picked up in?
That's why I brought it up. Adam put him back in my brain today, and I had to quote the Mike Zimmer thing from that press conference. Dude, what I would give to be a fly on the wall that last month before he got fired and just all the shit he must have been talking to everybody in there. Knowing he was going to get canned, he's like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to get fired anyways.
There's so many players. There's so many players to talk about right now for fun positions.
Like right now, I want to talk about Aaron Jones because that was the first piece of news that came through.
Oh yeah, that's right. Good call, Adam.
So we got that Aaron Jones re-signing coming through, and although I love that signing, I don't think Minnesota's done at running back.
They're not. I don't think so either. I think that's potentially you're looking in the draft for bringing in another running back. If I
like
possible.
Ty Chandler and everything, but I'm not ready to put him in even as like number Cam 2 Akers in a rotational.
More. I like Cam Akers more. Bring Cam Akers back. Why not? If you got the money.
And I know there's quite a few really good prospects in this draft at running back, and they could go kind of deep, so who knows?
Jones is a solid starter. I like him. I like him better with the additions the Vikings have done on the offensive line. I can't wait to talk about that. That's gonna help everyone
loves Minnesota, which is so good. I mean, there were reports coming out where he was saying, I want to come back to the Vikings, and the Vikings were already saying, we would love to have him back. So before this legal tampering window opened, we knew there was a good possibility that they could make something work. And yeah, he got a little bit of a raise from last year's salary, but that's expected, I think.
Right on. I do think if I'm Minnesota, you should probably start stockpiling running backs a little bit here, though. Jones has been banged up a little bit. You paid him. He's potentially maybe coming winding down in another couple years.
And you got him for 2 years, so you can have a guy come in behind him and, in a
correct.
rotational, be like in a tag team role there, and have him keep growing and developing.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yep. Yeah, but I kind of want to stockpile some backs here a little bit.
I don't think that's a terrible idea.
No. Do we want to talk about the defensive line, or we want to go offensive line first? Let's stay on offense. Let's talk about
let's talk about losing Johnny Mundt.
Yeah. Hey.
I don't like it. I like Johnny Mundt. I thought he was a great contributor. He did whatever he was asked to do. He might not have lit up scoreboards or been on a lot of fans' jerseys, but he was a good Minnesota Viking player.
Dude, we used to joke all the time that Johnny Munt's he's the best tight end number 3 in the NFL.
Right?
He was really good at what they asked him to do. So that's he's one of those depth guys that no, he's not your star player, but it hurts when you lose those depth guys like that.
I think he and Nick Mullins are in Jacksonville now, I believe.
That's correct. I was shattered by the Johnny Mundt news. As you guys know, I'm a huge fan. The team is in shambles now, and I'm going to stomp off like a little child holding my ears. No, Johnny Mundt was cool. Kind of the tight end version of Jarius Wright. It was really cool. He converted so many third downs, and I love that he was like, who? Most people, you hear his name at the stadium or hear it on TV, like, who the hell is that guy? But sneaky good. Good for him. Good for Nick Mullins. You guys mentioned he went to Jacksonville too, following Grant Udinski down there. So good luck to those players in Duval.
I don't know if you watched Monday Night Raw last night, but Pat McAfee dropped a Duval.
Yeah, he did. It was good. It was good stuff.
Let's see. We were talking about going offense. You got Aaron Jones. We talked about that. Obviously, we've been thinking about the running backs in the draft or maybe another one free agency. I don't know what Cam Akers' deal is. I have to look his contract up. But I know Adam and I got it first. I think Kyle heard it a little bit later. When we heard about Ryan Kelly coming to the team, the center from Indianapolis, man, I shot through the roof with excitement. I understand he had a little bit of the injury bug last year, but I think that is absolutely, you can't deny it's an upgrade. Which
he has absolutely struggled to stay on the field and be healthy over the course of his career. I think he's finished, 2 seasons healthy since he's arrived in the NFL, so that's probably a reason he only got a 2-year, $18 million, when all these offensive linemen that were getting paid before him that aren't even as good when healthy were getting much, much bigger deals.
It is, yes, I have heard that. It is a bit of a roll on the dice on the injury side of it, but I am glad that the Vikings made this decision because it's Garrett Bradbury, man, you squeezed all you could out of him, but it's just time to go in a different direction.
And at the time that deal was announced too, though, you had to look at it and say, okay, in Indy, he had much better help surrounding him at guard, and I don't know if he's going to have that in Minnesota. Well, that got a little different.
Yeah, they brought his guard along with him.
They sure did.
I'm a fan of that. The Vikings' offensive line was an issue that you heard Kevin O'Connell pretty much flat out say to the media that we need to get bigger and physical and better at this position. And it's kind of rare, I think, for a coach to be that honest in one of those press conferences after the season is over, to be like, no, this is what we're addressing. We are going to address the offensive line.
Well, it's such a weird situation because they ended up benching Ed Ingram, put Dalton Reisner in there. Now Dalton Reisner is a free agent. Then the other side, you got Blake Brandel, who tried a new position, and it didn't quite work as well as we'd hoped.
Yeah, that's being nice. That's fine. Swing tackle or guard, it's hard to say, well, they're going to live up to this. But looking at Ryan Kelly, and of course my browser is taking a second. So he was drafted in the first round in 2016. So he's been in the league a while, but he has 4 Pro Bowl selections. Just hoping that his injury history isn't going to be a soreness there. And that does leave questions for what is the deal in the move with Garrett Bradbury going forward. Do they try to trade him and get something for him? I think you could get a 6th or a 7th for Garrett Bradbury easily, but I don't know. I don't know if they're going to try to keep him and say, hey, look, now you're the backup. I think that would be kind of rude, but
I don't. I'm not a cap guy, but they are potentially over the cap currently with all the signings that they've done. So Bradbury might be thank you, but you have to go to get us back cap compliant kind of thing. I disagree with you a little bit, Smith. I don't think that you're going to be able to trade him when everyone in the league knows that you just paid a center. You're probably going to release the guy. Like, I don't think anyone covets him enough to go, I have to give up a 6th or 7th round pick to bring in Bradbury into my team. Like, well, I'll roll the dice with him as a free agent that we can just contact him and bring him in. Like, if
I got to see if he's still under contract. You're probably right. I don't know if he is. So he is under contract for 2025 for the Vikings. So that's why I bring that up is cool. Or do you keep him and you have a 31-year-old new starting center and a backup that's 30? Or do you say, hey, come get a starting center who's probably like 17th or 18th grade in the league and give us a 6th? Because they need draft picks. So I don't know. That would be cool. I don't know if it'll happen, but I would at least make the call.
I haven't gotten to see how all these contracts are formatted either, so I don't know what Minnesota has for salary cap space left or anything like that. I know you can kind of ballpark it and get some ideas, but as of right now, I don't think Minnesota's in a situation where they need to start liquidating and trying to get money. I don't think they're that desperate yet.
Tommy brings up a good point in the chat. He's talking about how people troll the Vikings on how, the free agents we've signed, they've missed 43 games, they can't stay healthy, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, those are definitely valid concerns that I think that people have had out there, Tommy. Although I believe one of them, wasn't the guard. I believe the guard had a broken leg. And to me, that's one of those issues where that just happens. I'm not overly concerned. It's not like he had the Teddy Bridgewater, my knee exploded kind of injury. So you can't. I don't hold that against him a little bit too. And if you remember, what Van Ginkel was coming off an injury last year, and Van Ginkel came in and played fucking excellent for this team as well too. So at some point, you're believing in your medical staff to, hey, we can bring these guys in and we can roll the dice with them because they've passed our medical side of it and we think we can take care of them, and it's not going to be an issue that's going to come up.
I want to bring this up too, just because the numbers make sense, and it's, say what you want about Bradbury against the elite competition on the D-line. I don't like watching any of the film because he seems to be on his ass a lot, but the guards were a big deal no matter what. Those were the 2 out of the 3 positions where you're like, nah, I would like to upgrade there before I think about center. I'm glad that the Vikings did both. But I'll give you a little rundown on Will Fries right now. 4th overall grade from Pro Football Focus. If you put any stock into them, some of you guys have issue with it. That's fine. 4th out of 135 for guards. Pass blocking grade, 18th out of 135. 5th overall in the run blocking grade out of 135 guards. So I don't know. That's a major upgrade from what we had this previous season. And that has to get you excited. And I said this. I have to give myself a pat on the back because it's the most generic thing you can say. But if you're just watching football 2 years ago, you absorb the teams and you see how, okay, this team runs the ball, this team passes, this team's defense is good, blah, blah, blah. And you really sat down for 2 seasons and tried to study it. How did the Eagles come about to win the Super Bowl? Look at their offensive and defensive line, right? And I said it immediately before, or right after the Vikings got pounced by by the Rams, right? I said, look, Detroit laid the blueprint, and then the Rams exposed it. You got to build your team like Philly does. Well, this is about as Philly a move as you can do, and we haven't even talked about the 2 free agent defensive line signings.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute too. There's still more to talk about on the offensive line.
Of course. Too. That's crazy that they actually did it because they've been neglecting this.
I know,
forever.
And it's something that has needed to be addressed, and they finally. I mean, and they've took shots. They tried to draft Ed Ingram. It didn't work out with him. So like they've tried pieces and parts along this offensive line. And if you guys remember back in the regular season when we were speculating about what we were going to do in the draft and free agency, I said at this point I was totally fine with the Vikings going out into free agency and saying, who are your top 2 or 3 guards? Overpay to bring one in. Overpay to bring me someone who is just going to be a solid fucking starter contributor on this line. They paid a lot of money to bring in this Fries player out here for this team, and I am totally okay with that because we need that sort of stability and upgrade on the offensive line. And now we're looking, and then I'll let you go, Adam. Now we're looking at an upgrade at center and guard and 2 real good tackles out there on the side that I firmly believe in. This is a much improved unit on paper for the Minnesota Vikings. It's exciting to see them do this.
And we still do have that one starting guard role that we aren't sure what's going to go on with, so we're going to keep an eye on that.
And they got some guys that you could bring back. You could bring back a Dalton Reisner for cheap. You could bring back a Quessenberry for cheap. Like, you've got some rotational guys that you can bring in for depth or who can push for that other guard position. There is one wild theory out there that says maybe you move Bradbury from center to guard. Do any of you guys believe that would be a possibility?
Well, I know putting Kelly at guard is a bad idea because he has never played over there.
Oh, I would
Adam,
be pissed.
Thank you for saying that because I see it on. Okay, so I deleted my Twitter because it was annoying me, and I'm going to do the same for Facebook. You just have so many people, if it's not the accounts that are just putting out literal dog shit just for clicks, it's people just, I'm just going to say something, and I'm going to put an exclamation point at the end because I said it. Well, you can just move Kelly to guard, dummy. That's what somebody said. No, you fucking can't. He hasn't played there, stupid. And all it takes is 10 seconds to Google that. I got so irritated reading that because Adam put it in the chat probably an hour before I read that. He was like, well, I wouldn't move him to guard because he literally has never played there. So,
I know it sounds like, okay, you have less responsibility at guard. It's probably easier. It's very different.
Yeah, it's not.
I mean, you got to change your technique. You got to change your angling. You got to change your point of attack, your stance. Everything's got to change.
And with Bradbury, I don't know if it would be such a detriment or a positive that he has familiarity with the team and with Brian O'Neill over at right tackle. I don't know if that would help or hinder him because he's so honed in on being the center for that team. So I don't know if that would be good or bad, but I feel like you probably just take your chances elsewhere. If 4 out of the 5 guys on the line can stay healthy and be good, on paper, this is going to be a tremendously improved unit. So,
and if Garrett Bradbury is an undersized center, he's a very, very undersized guard.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Before we go on, I just want to put the numbers out there too. We talked about Will Fries, Freeze, whatever you want to say. I don't know.
Friez.
Overall grade for Ryan Kelly, 17th out of 64 guards, pass blocking 12th, and 30th in run block out of 64. When you compare him to Garrett Bradbury, the only thing he's worse at is the run block. Garrett Bradbury is horrific at pass blocking. And he's about middle of the league.
What was Garrett Bradbury on pass block?
55th out of 64, 48.2.
What's Kelly?
Kelly is 12.
17? 12?
Yeah.
12? Yeah, that
checks out. Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, how many times throughout the course of his career did we see Bradbury just get immediately
poor guy
shoved on his ass and pressure in the face of...
He's been pancaked a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
And I will give him credit. He's not getting pancaked by small humans like Dexter Lawrence throwing you across the field. It checks out.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
It's a really difficult position to play. A really difficult position.
I also will say I'm 6 foot tall. I'm right at 215 now that I've lost all this weight. Meeting a center in real life will humble the fucking shit out of you. Meeting Jason Kelce at the Super Bowl, that's a large dude, and he's been out of the league for a year. I imagine he was probably bigger when he played because they're always consuming calories and lifting. He's massive. And I just kind of stood there and all because I met Garrett Bradbury as well at the Charlotte airport. These are big boys. And seeing him on TV get pushed by Dexter Lawrence and those guys, you're like, oh, that guy, he's not real. He's like an alien. Okay. I can't imagine how big these guys actually are. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. I know when I got a chance to meet Kyle Rudolph, and Kyle Rudolph is what?
He's got to be like 6'7".
6'6", 6'7". Like shaking his hand. I know I've told the story before, but I'll tell it again real quick. You go to shake his hand, and the palm of his hand, I'm not exaggerating, the whole size of my hand. You're like, oh, you are an entirely different species than what I am.
Yeah, I got a picture of Kyle Rudolph, and I looked like a little kid right next to him.
Yep. It's you understand all of a sudden, like we joke, we're like, man, the gloves that these players wear allow them to go out and make these crazy spectacular one-handed catches. And yeah, there's a little truth to that. But like when you shake his hand, when you're like, oh, his hand is the size of a fucking football. That's how he's able to go out and just palm the damn thing.
Yeah, when you're using baseball mitts as hands, it's easy to catch stuff, and it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that is all the offensive news, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Let's shift.
We're not done. We got defensive tackles and corners and
All right, so let's open with the most confusing part of the free agency period for me. I don't get the extension for Theo Jackson. Help me out with that, guys.
You still don't know what you're doing with Harrison Smith. I think that you're keeping Theo Jackson because you're. That's where my mind.
He didn't play 20 defensive snaps last season. He was basically a core special teamer, and they paid him like he's going to have some sort of defensive role, and maybe they've got a plan for him. I hope they got some sort of Josh Metellus idea for him where they're signing him to an extension. They have a plan for him. They know what they're going to do, because right now I don't know what that plan is.
I'm assuming Brian Flores has a plan. I would hope they have a plan. I would hope that they're not just signing players willy-nilly.
Well, they have to have seen something to commit like that.
Yeah.
And I understand what Kyle's saying, too. Like, I think the rumblings we're hearing as of March 11th is Harrison Smith will probably have one more year. It might be leaning towards that way. But you have to have something there, and the secondary is depleted, man. It really is.
My bad, he played 78 defensive snaps last season, which still ain't a lot.
No, that's not enough. that's what, one game?
Like you were saying, Smith, there's a lot of turnover in that secondary. I almost think at some point, man, you gotta bring some guys back who just know the system.
Well, they did that, and my favorite defensive, even though these D tackles are absolute great additions, I am so stoked for Byron Murphy staying with Minnesota. This is so cool.
There are a lot of fans that are really experiencing sticker shock, though. They did not think he was going to cost that much. And when you look at the season he had last year, where he had, 9 interception, was it? Somewhere around there?
There's a lot. Let me look
he's
he's
27-ish, 28 or something like that.
Yeah.
At his age, coming off that season, he was going to get paid.
Yeah.
I'm looking at his stats and his contract. I'm on Spot Track right now, so I can tell you exactly what that's going to be. Oh, no. It's $66 million here for ESPN. I'm trying to get you the average deal, but yeah, he's on a $66 million deal.
It's 3 year, right? So about $22 million a year.
3 years, $66 million. Yeah, that's good. Good job, Adam. I did not have that right in front of me. Trying to see.
I mean, yeah, it is a kick in the pants as far as what you don't want to have for your salary cap, but the Vikings had nothing at corner.
His base salary this year is $1.4 million. I mean, I still don't know. It's
all weighed out. I mean,
the cap hits $5 million for him this year. I don't understand how they do that. I still don't understand the cap, and I've been watching football for 15 years. I need to watch a YouTube video that'll explain it to me like I'm 5, but. Total cash this year for him is $20 million, however that goes. But you know what? If it only counts 5 against the cap, that's cool. And I'll say it. I don't think he's not Pat Surtain. He's not Sauce Gardner. But you don't have to have those are the guys that you say like a Patrick Mahomes. If there was even an inkling that he was available, every other team in the league would at least call to say hey, what's it going to be? They would at least inquire. Pat Surtain, who is it? Sauce Gardner. These guys that are the best in the league right now. They can go to every team and they can work. What I need is a guy that's going to be affordable enough to stay with us, that gets paid, but kind of works in the middle. Like, it's kind of friendly for both. But does he work in the system? Last year showed he works fine in this system.
What I am learning about Brian Flores' defense, the more we get to see it unfold and the more we get to see him sign the kind of players that he wants, that he covets, it's predicated on getting pressure from your front, from your defensive edge lineman, whatever you call them in a 3-4. So you're getting your pressure from your big guys up front. So you don't, yes, if Sauce Gardner is available, of course you want that level of corner. But I don't necessarily think for the Vikings defense, you need that true shutdown man-to-man corner out there. You need corners who are, you're not going to get torched. We need you to hold up. We need you to hold up just long enough in coverage for us to get pressure from the front, to get after the quarterback. That's truly what we're asking of you.
You know what hasn't been talked about enough that I think fans are kind of sleeping on a little bit is the signing of cornerback Isaiah Rodgers from the Eagles.
I have him waiting here too to talk about him.
I don't know a hell of a lot about him, Adam. That's my thing.
The thing people know most about him is that he was suspended for a year for gambling.
Right. He had to gamble.
Oh, I don't even care. Dude, I don't even care about that.
But last year for the Eagles, he had a fantastic season.
Did he? Okay.
He actually finished 6th among all qualifying Pro Football Focus man coverage cornerbacks.
He had a pass defense in the Super Bowl that I actively remember when I'm watching that game. He's not the starting corner in Philly, but that's also like every position had like gold star players there. The guy that left for New England that got paid a bunch of money, he was a rotational dude there, and he's going to be a starter in New England. So when he's behind Darius Slay and C.J. Gardner-Johnson, like, of course he's not going to be the feature corner there, but I love this. He's a dog, and I asked my resident Eagles fan.
He's got a nose for football too, so I like him.
Yes.
He's the kind of player that's going to excel in Brian Flores' defense, man.
Sergio said, are we good or do we suck again? Well, on paper, Sergio, we're fucking killing it, and Kwesi is cooking right now. So
it's the off season, so we're back to winning the Super Bowl, guys.
Of course, exactly.
Well, I know a lot of fans like you, Wes, weren't really familiar with Isaiah Rodgers based on his history, name recognition, and everything, but he's a baller.
And you know what? Based on last year, I pulled this guy's contract up. This guy played for us last year. Played well. Not great, but not bad. Had a base salary of 1.5 and a total cap hit of 4. Call Shaquille Griffin and see if he wants to come back, dude. I don't mind him being in the cornerback room. You're going to get Mekhi Blackmon back, and Shaquille Griffin will be there. Jay Ward is there. Josh Metellus is still around. Theo Jackson to sign. They just signed Bubba Bolden, I think, for the special teams side.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about Bolden sticking around for too long, but at this point, you're still just trying to fill out your roster, bring in talent, and I'm okay with that.
But call Shaquille Griffin back, man. That's a viable cornerback room. It's respectable.
That'll be coming. There's Adam's kitty making an appearance on the show. No, because there's kind of that second wave, that second tier of free agency that's going to be coming here real shortly too. And I do think the Vikings will be active in picking up some of those pieces and parts. And for me as a fan, I never want to sit here and think just because I haven't heard of a player that oh my God, that's a terrible signing. Because look, I was not super familiar with Andrew Van Ginkel before we signed him last year. And then we brought him in, and as soon as he started playing, I'm like, holy shit, this is one of my favorite players on the team. Like, I love me some Andrew Van Ginkel.
When Van Ginkel and Grenard played well enough to keep Dallas Turner in the sideline, that's a good thing.
So if the player that we signed from the Eagles can be like this year's Andrew Van Ginkel of like, okay, here's a guy who can maybe make a splash out there for you, like that's exciting for me.
He's going to be your nickel guy matching up against some of those tough targets, and he's going to be good in man coverage, and that's exactly what you want.
I like it.
He likes to tackle, too, which I saw some of the comments about Byron Murphy. He's like, well, I don't like him because he didn't want to tackle. Yeah, he's a ball hawk, and he does this. Okay, well, I have a nickel that wants to tackle. So that's cool. That's kind of their whole job. So I love this signing. I love that they have addressed – they're not going to fix everything day one in free agency, but at least –
well, they're getting close.
I mean, they might. Shit, they might figure it out.
What they're doing right now is that they're freeing up spots so they don't have to pigeonhole themselves.
Correct.
In the first round of the draft, they can grab the best player available and roll.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about that because I don't want to ever see Minnesota in a position again where they have to go a certain position in the draft,
of
and they got to reach for a player that they have absolutely no business taking where they do.
Of like the Lewis Seam, Christian Ponder pigeonhole of
right.
We need a quarterback. We need a safety. Oh, I'm reaching for a player at this point.
Yeah. I'm looking up the rest of the guys we haven't mentioned because I kind of saved these for last. This is no disrespect to Harrison.
You're saving the big boys for last.
This is no disrespect to Harrison Phillips. I think he'll probably still be on the team and they'll have a good rotation.
Oh, he'll still start at nose, no problem there.
Harrison Phillips, I think. Sorry,
go ahead,
we all got so much to say. I think Harrison Phillips was asked to do a little too much. They stretched him a little too thin. I think the additions that they've made around him now, all of a sudden, you're going to see a better version of Harrison Phillips on this team.
And especially when he's got more talented players next to him at the ends on that 3-4.
Mm-hmm.
Because Minnesota's bringing in some defensive tackles that were on the inside at their previous teams, but will probably play end with the Vikings in 3-4.
That's crazy. I'm reading up on these guys. Sorry if it looks like I'm staring off into the abyss. Do you guys want to talk about Hargrave or Jonathan Allen first?
I know more about Jonathan Allen because that guy is a monster. What is he, like a 4-time Pro Bowler or something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
Right.
2-time or something like that. I know he's been to the Pro Bowl and he's an aggressive player. He's not monstrous, but he is exactly what you want in your defensive front to hold your own, get some pressure. He can do whatever people want you to do, and that's great.
Yeah, I'm still reading this. Deal with the Vikings. This is from Ben Gessling. $51 million over 3 years, 10.5 of incentives, 23.25 fully guaranteed. So that's cool. I believe he is 30 years old. I saw some highlights in the NFC Championship game and the game against Detroit. He's a problem. He's a bigger deal than the Javon Hargraves signing, but those are both great additions because you have to look at the total value of what they're bringing in. Oh, this guy's 30-something years old. Yeah, I'm not signing him for an 8-year deal, man. 2 years, they probably get out of it after a year. But you gotta address the weaknesses or the places where you say, okay, we're good, not great, and that's exactly what this says. I've heard nothing but good things from my Commander fan friends, and they said, yeah, it's about time. But he's a hard player, like Adam said. He plays hard, and I'm excited for this, man. You were reading,
and Allen is also a community guy. I mean, he runs homeless shelters in Washington, and he's a real stand-up guy that does things on the field, and he's going to fit in great in Minnesota.
And it says here on MinnesotaSportsFan.com, means the deal is more backloaded, but it basically is a contract for 2 years, which gives the Vikings some flexibility to make a decision prior to 2027 as they build the roster around J.J. McCarthy. Ironically enough, will probably be around the time they either fifth-year option him or figure that out. So it all makes sense. Yeah, I love this. This is great. I hear nothing but good news from my Commander fan friends about him.
I loved coming into this offseason. We weren't sure how much Minnesota was going to be active in the trenches, and it was one of the first things they did. And I love that.
Yeah, it's nice to see them kind of laser focused on offense and defensive line because it's a boring take, man. But that really is where you win in the NFL, on your offense and your defensive line, and bolster those and then work your way out from there.
Because I thought we were going to be really heavy in the defensive back market immediately. And yes, Minnesota's made some moves there. Basically bringing back their own guys, grabbing a couple smaller names. But overall, I'm pretty happy with everything. And I got to ask, Mr. West, are you dressed like The Rock in that fanny pack picture?
This is a work shirt. I could if I had a turtleneck on.
There you go.
I saw that on TikTok the other day. I forget what movie it is.
I do own a fanny pack, sir. I will have you know.
Nice.
It comes in handy when I go out and I do photography work. If I want to bring a spare lens or something with me, like you put it in the fanny pack and it's easy to access and get to.
The last person to talk about here is Javon Hargrave. Now, he had a great season in 2023. He played 16 games for San Fran then, but
he coming off an injury?
Yeah, he had a triceps thing, I believe, last year. He
Okay.
only played 3 games last year. So this is another bet on the free agent market, just like they did last year. Little older players, little injury asterisks with some of these players, but they're trying, and they're trying to at least appearing like, hey, they're making this move to beef up the lines, which is great. To add him and Jonathan Allen really means you're taking it serious, and you kind of have to. I mean, I haven't seen much that Green Bay has done. Detroit added some good players. Chicago is going to be vastly improved if they have the right coaching staff in place. They've been adding players left and right. They had a lot of cap space to do it. You have to stay competitive, not only within your own building, but you got to remember where you're at. Detroit has taken over the division, and Chicago, if it works out, they've got their boy wonder quarterback that they're building around, and they're at least making the attempt to do right by him versus what they did with Fields. So you got to stay
Chicago.
competitive.
It's another off season for Chicago where you can look at them and you can go, boy, on paper they have made all of the right off season acquisitions to help bolster that team. They reworked essentially their entire offensive line as well too, and I do to bring this back to the Vikings. I enjoy seeing them spend this money on the defensive front out there, because I really do think that that is where this scheme that Brian Flores runs really excels at, is guys who can get pressure without having to dial up exotic, crazy blitzes. Can you just get pressure in one-on-one situations and beat the guy in front of you? That's truly going to help this defense out by adding those kinds of guys out there.
Adam, I have a question for you because this feels like something you would know. So Kyle asked if we're going to – I'm sorry. Justin asked, do we get a pick for Daniel Jones? So the Vikings are officially awarded the highest comp pick in 2025 because of Kirk Cousins being gone. But I believe that was based on salary. So since Daniel Jones signed for nothing, would it be like a 6th or a 7th for him?
I don't know. Would Daniel Jones get like $15 million or something like that?
Yeah, 15.
That ain't bad. I mean, what they'll be able to do is they'll be able to add that to some of the other signings and maybe turns that into a late pick.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think they will get something, or at least have it add up to something, which is definitely wonderful.
That should go into next year, I believe, because you're just getting the one from Kirk Cousins this year. And this is from Will Raggett. Shout out to him. He's a great follow for social media and Vikings news. Has netted them the highest comp pick of any team in the league. They get the 97th overall pick in the 3rd round. So
who does?
We do, from Kirk Cousins leaving. So from last year with him signing with Atlanta, highest comp pick of any team in the league this year. So
that's literally the best thing Kirk Cousins has ever done for this franchise.
I got a really weird question for you guys. Are you worried about CJ Ham's future after seeing another team decide to stop running with a fullback?
No, because I don't think that he has a big cap number. Does he?
Because Kyle Juszczyk got let go, and he was probably one of the top fullbacks in the league.
He's probably your premier fullback in the NFL. I think CJ Ham is fine for another year. Vikings really like him. He's team captain last year. Good community player. I think that there's still a place for him on offense. If you
I just hate to see those blockers, getting eradicated really from the league. I know it's more of a pass-happy league, and putting a player back there to block probably isn't the best for a passing formation, but CJ Ham's done some good things in Minnesota, and I like having him here, and I don't know how much longer the fullback position will stay relevant.
I think
he's only due to make $2.5 million, and the cap hit would be $3 million. I don't know if they're going to change that, but for his contract this year, he'll be 32. Maybe this is the last hurrah for him.
Yeah.
Even if it is, he's had a real good run.
He's made $17 million so far being the fullback. He's doing all right.
Yeah. If you needed to, you could call up CJ Ham on the phone and say, hey, we need to shave a little bit off the top. We'll do that thing that we do where we take it and we give it to you as a signing bonus or whatever. You'll get your money. We get to keep you around for another year. We'll go for that. I think he stays on this roster.
There's also a lot of rumblings right now. The Minnesota Vikings are in the hunt to get a solid number 3 wide receiver. Have you guys heard a lot about that?
I was reading a little bit about someone in the organization, multiple people in the organization, being really in on Cooper Kupp should he become available. Now, Smith is shaking his head.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense with Kevin O'Connell and winning.
It's weird because I actually feel the same way about Robert Woods, which a lot of people don't like Robert Woods. I know he's getting older. He's coming off a season that he didn't do much, but he was with Kevin O'Connell, and he does average about 10 yards of reception in his career. So I don't know. I wouldn't hate Robert Woods.
I don't know the deal with Cooper Kupp and what he would want to accept. I'm sure he realizes like, hey, I'm getting a little older, whatever. But you have your choice there. If he ends up coming to Minnesota, I don't think he's going to sign with us, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think it'll be a little lower level of a player than him. But man, wouldn't that be crazy? Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Addison,
T.J. Hawkinson, Aaron Jones.
That's got a nice ring to it when you say it out loud like that.
And a nice offensive line for J.J. McCarthy.
Oh man! Don't do that, dude. Don't give me hope. Don't give me hope for this team. Let me be sad and miserable.
You could bring back Stephon Diggs and just have all kinds of receivers out there.
Also, we got to tie this all in because we're talking about the Rams. Davante Adams went to the Rams, which is awesome for him. I think he'll have a nice little end to his career there, which is great. I like Davante. He needed
Oakland. I can never not say Oakland. God damn it. Where are they now?
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas Raiders. That doesn't count. Anyone who is a good player who goes to the Raiders and has an off season doesn't count. It happened to Randy Moss, happens to everyone. That season don't count. Getting him away from Aaron Rodgers is probably a good thing for his career at this point as well too. So I'm rooting for him, man.
I think it's cool too that today Puka Nacua is going back to his college number. He's giving Davante Adams the choice to wear 17, even though that was his number. And
cool.
That's pretty cool of him. It speaks to his character. He could be like, hey, I'm the rising big dog of this team. Obviously, Davante has a more storied career, but he is on the back nine now of his. I thought that was really cool and should be noted. Puka Nacua is a real one.
So after all these deals and movements, what is your biggest concern left for the Vikings roster?
The secondary. The secondary, absolutely.
Because they still got a question mark at that second starting safety position, and honestly, we still don't know or have not gotten word at all about what's going on with Harrison Smith.
Hey, call Lewis Cine. I'm sure he'll come back. I'm kidding.
Stop.
I'm kidding.
Would you stop?
Super Bowl champion Lewis Cine.
I'm kidding. But, yeah, the secondary, add another corner, add a safety or two. The good thing, we mentioned this already in the show, but it has to be said again, is they are not pigeonholed to absolutely have to take a this or that the first round. I personally believe they're going to trade out of the first round and get a couple picks and add to it since they have a low number of draft picks this year. It seems like a Kwesi move. Just for the love of God, please don't trade with Detroit. Don't trade with the division.
Yeah, no more trading. No more trading in division.
Don't do that.
To answer your question, Adam, and I'm going to answer it as we're sitting here today, the way the Vikings roster looks. So keep in mind that there's this whole second wave of free agents that are going to come out, your lower tier guys, whatever, that they will address some of what I'm talking about. Right now, dude, you've got to figure something out for your backup quarterback position. That's all of a sudden probably priority number one for what's going to happen at that spot. I do think you need some more depth at running back, like what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. You have to fill that out, and then from there, I mean, you look at corner. That's more something for me where I'm looking towards the draft. Maybe a safety, maybe a corner. We'll kind of see what shakes out in that position. You want to get crazy? You could maybe draft yourself a linebacker.
Interior or edge rusher?
Interior.
I forgot with adding all these pass rushers, we still have Dallas Turner on this team.
Yeah, dude.
I bought a jersey with his name on it, so that's cool.
You know what's nice?
Right now Minnesota's filling out this roster in a lot of good ways, and they're really opening up a lot of options. And the more that we see these players getting deals and, reportedly joining the team, the better I'm starting to feel about this upcoming season, because I was really concerned about the cornerback position, and I didn't know what we were going to do for, the trenches, and I'm really happy about what has been going on so far. I'm not going to go as far as to say, I'm ecstatic, and I think Minnesota's going to do better than last year, because 14 wins is a really high bar.
It really is.
Yeah.
Who brought it up in the chat? Someone brought up a really good point in the chat I wanted to get back to. Love the depth. They're realistic with the contracts. That's Justin. So the realistic contracts, and that's a good point that you brought up that ties into something that Smith said about how, remember we have Dallas Turner out there. So they brought in some veteran players, okay, who by the time the contracts that we just signed them to are coming up, in theory, you've just got Dallas Turner who's ready to step up into a full-time, starter to take over for some of the guys that you just signed.
He's a bust.
That's not a knock on Dallas Turner. That's not a knock on Dallas Turner, but that's the success that the Vikings have had with guys like Everson Griffin, who you slowly ease them into it until they become a starter. And that's what they're doing, I think, with Dallas Turner as well, too.
Yeah, they're coming along slow with him. There's no point in sitting down one of their established pass rushers that they paid a lot of money for. I know a first-round pick is a big investment. You expect a lot from a guy you draft that high and trade up for in the draft, but there's absolutely no rush to throw massive expectations on a guy that is a rotational player at the moment.
Right.
Justin, 2 minutes, penalty box. Kirk Cousins coming back. I won't have it. I'm taking it off the screen.
I can't believe he is even anywhere near talking his way back into staying in Atlanta.
I don't think it's that, unless you heard a report that that's what it is. I don't think that's it. I think Atlanta said, holy shit, we paid this guy a lot of money. Hell no, we're not letting you leave. And it's dumb if he's not going to be the starter, but at least to have him there, what if Penix gets injured, What if they go into camp and say, okay, realistically, and we've all heard this. I'm only spewing stuff that I've heard. I'm not a doctor, right? The year after an Achilles injury, you should be more back to form, back to normal, right? Because he looked kind of funky last year.
But Kirk can just throw his hands up and say, I got guaranteed money, I got a no trade clause, I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. But they made the investment in the guy, and hey, he's probably going to write off his career in the sunset there if he doesn't go anywhere. So why would you get rid of him unless you're going to work with him to get traded somewhere? I don't know, because it's running out of options at this point. New York or Pittsburgh? I don't know. Unless he wants to go to one of the quarterback needy teams. But
maybe he's just looking at it as an option to double dip financially, which, let's be honest, I don't think I've ever known Kirk Cousins to turn down a heap of money.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Yeah. If I was Atlanta, I would hold him hostage and say, hey, look, I paid for your services and we're going to get him. And until you absolutely shit the bed and you look like I can't even think of his name now, Jamarcus Russell out there, until you look like him and we have to put Penix in, get your ass on the field because we paid you $100 million or whatever it was. Yeah. But I don't know.
I'm glad that's their mess.
Yeah. Well, I think truthfully, though, we all know how Kirk is. He wants to keep playing. He probably still thinks, man, I still got it in me. I'm sure
he does
train and get healthier, but he's not going to take a backup role unless he absolutely has to.
Right.
And that in that case, then you're just doing I'm getting paid $100 million to be a backup, whatever. He's not going to retire and not get that money, but he wants to start. And they paid him to play there. So I'm I guess that's why it makes sense for me. But I forget, Adam, you wrote it out there too. He's got a no trade clause. They're not sending him anywhere. He'd be like, F you, I'm not going to the Browns. That was floated out there. What if they get him? They didn't. None of the national. Give Adam his flowers right now. None of the national media does any of their damn homework on this. Well, Kirk Cousins could be linked because his old whatever coordinator is there in Cleveland.
Until Kirk gets cut, there's no point in even having a conversation about this.
He's not going to get traded to the
No
Browns.
trade clause.
He's not going to do that. Why would he do that?
He's got the no trade clause on his contract. So unless Kirk is willing to waive that,
I don't know how he negotiates that every time, but he makes sure to get that.
I'll tell you this. I went along saying this in other chats, and I think I might have said it on the show too. If I was a quarterback, if I was Sam Darnold, one of those guys like Baker Mayfield or whatever, Brock Purdy's a great example. I want to talk about him to end the show. And there's no way in hell if I'm San Francisco, I'm paying that dude anything more than $41 million a year. And I heard it was 45. I'd be like, see you fucking later, man. No. And nothing that I see from him jumps off the screen to be like, that's the reason they're going to the Super Bowl.
Well, what was it? Geno Smith reportedly wanted, 45 to 50 million? Somewhere in there?
Here's what you do. You take a slice of the Kirk Cousins mantra and you use that just like you would do with any other position. I don't know why this isn't more prevalent in the NFL. Maybe the agents are just like vehemently against it. But you go to a team, like if I'm Sam Darnold, I go to the Vikings and say, hey, look, my best chance to win is with you. What's your number? They say 28. You say, hey, how about $30 million a year for 3 years, fully guaranteed? $90 million right now, however you want to divvy it up, but it's fully guaranteed. That's cheaper than most quarterback contracts. Right. In 2 years, that's going to be a freaking steal. Why are more quarterbacks not doing that? Now, I understand the notion of why would you tell these guys not to take as much money as humanly possible? I get it.
The problem is pride. You got players like, I'm making more than that guy. I want to make more than that. And that's what Jamar Chase was, too. Him and his, I'm going to make more than Justin Jefferson.
Correct. And to defend that statement, Adam, he deserves it. Him and Brock Purdy at their respective positions, they are nowhere near each other. I'm saying like Brock Purdy, I don't think he's not a starter in the league, but I don't think he should be getting paid more than, this person that. Well, they went to the Super Bowl. They went to the conference championship. Here's my argument for that.
He's got more playoff wins than Justin Herbert.
And he's got more playoff wins than a lot of quarterbacks. It's kind of weird, right? But you gotta look to say, okay, if I put him on Tennessee, if I put him in Carolina, is he going to do the same? If I put Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, or Josh Allen in Carolina, I bet you that team's pretty damn competitive.
I love that you mentioned Tennessee because I have no idea what they're doing this season.
I don't think
they are. I'm
Nothing.
sitting there scratching my head.
It's a resurgent year. But my point for the Brock Purdy stuff is, if I send him to the worst teams in the league, will he elevate the team to playoff contention? Probably not. If I send those 4 guys there that have won MVPs, probably they're going to be close to playoff, where just because the quarterback is that damn good. I'm not saying that they shouldn't get paid, but if I'm Brock Purdy, I say, hey, look, you give me 5 years, $200 million guaranteed. That's $40 a year. That's good enough for the team to be like, that's a damn good deal for us. And he gets to say, I got $200 million coming for breathing. Regardless if you cut me tomorrow, like I'm signing that deal now. I don't get the notion of why it has to be like, I got to sign this guy to $60 million a year. No, you fucking don't. Why would you sign Tua to that? Why would you sign Trevor Lawrence to that? I know you don't like Justin Herbert. Why would you sign him to that if it's not like this is a bonus? Like when I look at Joe Burrow, I don't look at Cincy and be like, well, the reason they didn't go to the playoffs is Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow should have won MVP last year. If we're being completely honest, he is the most valuable player. But the defense is terrible and their owner's cheap, right? I just kept seeing that over the weekend. Well, Brock Purdy's going to get $50 million a year. How? How can you live with yourself with that? He's white Teddy Bridgewater. You're not going to pay Teddy Bridgewater $50 million a year, and I love Teddy. It's
so
crazy.
With these current contracts skyrocketing and the salary cap going up so much every year, how much longer is it until the CBA gets reworked where these rookie players start getting paid more on their contracts? Because, like, most of the time, a first rounder or even 6th, 7th rounder, what they get paid is pretty much in the CBA. There's not a whole lot of work around it.
It's funny.
But do you remember, like, not too long ago, what was it, like maybe 10 years ago, maybe 15, when those first round picks could negotiate their own deals when they came to teams, and like Sam Bradford got a old bag.
Sam Bradford was on the tip of my tongue where, like, you had guys who were coming into the league. Jamarcus Russell came into the league. He sat out, got a huge contract. And, like, we all know how that played out, too. And it's interesting because they got away from that for that very reason, because you were having players who had not proved themselves at the NFL level getting big contracts, and that was like, we don't want that.
But now they're getting absolute peanuts compared to NFL, minimum salary guys, and I don't think that's really right either.
Here's another little monkey wrench to throw out there too. You're also getting players coming out of college who are getting paid handsomely to play in college. Okay, so is it like are they taking a pay cut to get on a rookie pay scale in the NFL?
Absolutely not. And I'll tell you a fun thing, Kyle, that was floated this weekend, not to interrupt, but Rich Eisen brought this up. I love Rich's show. I will watch every episode from there. He said, how far away are we from having the players say, I'm not doing the combine unless I get paid? Why should I?
Well, let's be honest, Shedeur Sanders is probably making more right now than he will in his rookie year.
Absolutely he is.
Yeah.
And I think
he's probably making more on endorsements.
I think it's funny too that teams want to be like the 1930s with him and be like, well, he's got character and blah, blah, blah. His dad went up to the Giants and told them, where are you picking? Oh, I'm not going to be there.
I ain't going to be there.
Okay, I don't think that Shedeur Sanders is anywhere near as talented as his dad, but he's not bad either. To have that thing of being like, well, I can't believe he's like that. Have you seen his father?
There's the legend of Deion Sanders 40 time where he showed up and ran the 40 and left.
They literally called Atlanta the house that Deion built. And that's another thing about him. Like, I could talk about this all day long. Who do you think is going to be the most NFL-ready player going into the draft? Fucking Shedeur Sanders. Look who his dad is.
We said that about Marvin Harrison Jr., though.
Well, yeah, that's true. He had a very underwhelming rookie year. But I also, as in all respect to Marvin Harrison, he's a Hall of Famer, but he ain't Deion level of oh shit.
He also got Kyler Murray throwing you the football.
But this is why we're looking at the deal that J.J. McCarthy is on in Minnesota, allowing Minnesota to make these kind of deals and not having to pay a guy $45-50 million a year.
Yeah. Yep. It'll be interesting to see what they have to do when the time comes to pay J.J. McCarthy on how do you pay your quarterback in a way that doesn't hamper the team's ability to build around him? Like, have teams figured that out? Like, what's the mold for doing that?
I'm glad that's 4 years away.
It goes by so quick, though, dude. It goes by so fast. It's
funny, Fire Breather's bringing up Deshaun Watson in there. It's funny that Cleveland had the chance to get every draft pick back that they wasted away on Deshaun Watson, and instead they reset the market again, and they're still going to be terrible. The only quarterback acquisition they've made is Kenny Pickett, and he ain't taking you anywhere. So
no,
I don't understand Cleveland. I don't. You were there with Baker Mayfield. You can say
100%.
You can say maybe he had some maturity issues. Maybe he needed to go through what he went through in order to get him where he's at right now.
Right.
That's a 100% valid argument to make. But guys, you were right fucking there with Baker Mayfield. You had sucked for an eternity. All you had to do was not shit the bed moving forward. And you not only did you shit it, you had explosive diarrhea.
Well, I think we hit pretty much everything, guys.
So the NFL draft isn't too far away. What are we Are we 6 weeks away from the NFL draft now?
End of April? It's around April 20th.
Yeah, 6 weeks away.
20th, 22nd, somewhere in there.
24th, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not too far off. We got this free agency stuff going on. We're going to get a lot more speculation about the draft up to this point, and then tomorrow at 4 p.m. tomorrow, the league year starts and players can start signing those deals that we've been hearing all about, and things can become official. But at least for now, we're getting that cool legal tampering fun time period where things are just absolutely wild.
Well, it's funny too.
But next week we'll have more official things.
It happened too. It's really funny. This is all not under the table or handshake deals, but this all is not actually legal yet, because unless a team cuts someone, you can't really start actually signing stuff.
Right.
So it happened with the D tackle from Philly. He was going to Carolina, and then New England swooped in and said, "Just kidding, we'll give you more." So technically, if you want to look at it, none of these deals are actually real yet. Most of them will be, but remember, this has happened in recent years too. Josh McDaniels was going to
Anthony Barr.
Anthony Barr was going to the Jets. Kirk Cousins was getting love from the Jets. Josh McDaniels was going to be the coach of Indy for a day, and then he was like, "Just kidding, psych." So it could happen again. It happened with a player.
I forgot about the Josh McDaniels thing.
Hilarious, dude.
That has to be one of the biggest dick moves. Like, why would you?
Before we go and sign off, I just have to say, because I am a Tar Heel fan, we got Bill Belichick. I can't believe it. This is Viking related too. Mike Prefer is the special teams coordinator there, and dude, he's got some former players that are coaches on this squad. North Carolina's about to fuck some shit up this year. I'm so excited. They might squeak in, since it's a multi-team playoff now. Like, what is it, 12 teams? They might sneak in at 11 or 12 this year. I am so pumped for my Tar Heels. This is a basketball school, guys. Our football team is always 500 every year.
Why would you ever bet against Bill Belichick?
You can't, dude. I read an article last week that he's making the players earn their numbers in practice, like he did in New England. Oh, man, I can't wait. 3 yards in a cloud of dust, baby. Let's go.
Well, that's all I got. Do you guys got anything else you want to talk about?
I think that's it. We've been on here for an hour and 21 minutes, and it doesn't even feel like 15 minutes has passed.
That was a hefty show. Yeah, I know. We could have went a lot deeper on some of those signings, but there was a lot of movement out there, and like I said, I still think there's that second wave of free agency that you're going to see some activity from the Vikings.
Oh yeah, we'll have plenty to talk about next week, and we will be back to talk about those. Thank you to everyone who joined us in the chat. We love you guys. You can check out my work over on the Viking Age. And interact with me on social media at MNVikingZombie, wherever you like to work your social media. I'm there.
Kyle West is over on Blue Sky.
Yeah, you can find me at Vaguely Square on Blue Sky. Real quick before we end the show, don't think about it too hard. Over under on 14 wins for the Vikings this year. What do you guys say? Under?
Yeah.
Under?
Yeah, I'm not betting over on that ever.
But I will say too, if you were on Blue Sky, you did not have to deal with that X outage on the first day of legal tampering, so
it was funny. Florio brought that up. He's like, "What happened with X?" He's like, "We have our opinions on who bought it and who runs it." He's like, "But I had to go on Blue Sky to look for breaking information." I was like, "Really? That's crazy." We're so used to Twitter or X being the place where we're like refreshing. Pat McAfee was bitching about it live on ESPN. It was funny.
Oh yeah, everybody was in a chaos about it. It was wild. Over on the fan side in our chat, people were not happy.
Oh, well, that'll do it, Adam.
Kyle Smith's, I don't know if he has any social media at all anymore. I think he has an Instagram.
I do. I'm not putting my stuff up there. It's fine. I don't have anything I want to talk about. I'm settling into a new home, and I turned 37 yesterday, so that's my big
And in a couple weeks, maybe we'll have an update on your album.
I hope so. I'd like to get started on recording, so it's time.
That would be fantastic. But we'll be back next week to talk more about the Minnesota Vikings, and in the meantime, stay classy, Minnesota.